Welcome to another how-to video from the K9 Helm workbench. Today we're going to be installing a MOHOC camera. These are very popular, ruggedized, military-grade, helmet-specific cameras. However, in order to install a MOHOC onto a CS1, you need an adapter. And that's what we have right here. This was made specifically to match the shape and the whole pattern of the top of the CS1 platform. In my previous video, I showed you how to remove your Picatinny rail so that everything is ready for the install that we're going to do right now. You'll notice that the mount is honeycombed on the bottom, so that it's both stiff, strong, and lightweight. It has brass threaded inserts that match the two 1/2-inch long screws that were supplied with the mount kit. And for these screws, you will be using the larger of the two hex wrenches that are shipped with every CS1 helmet. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is the tightening of the screws. Before you just slap this on here and throw your screws in there, we need to talk about the tightness. I would prefer that you use these wrenches because it's often too easy to apply too much torque if you're using a large wrench or bit driver. The reason this is important is because the new helmets are made of injection molded polycarbonate. And if you don't know your plastics, this is exactly the same grade of plastic that your military compliant lens is made out of. It's a fantastic material as far as impact and penetration resistance specifically. However, there are some downsides, and the biggest one is you cannot apply localized force over a long period of time, such as overly tightened screws. What happens is you get stress cracks around the fastener area, and then this wonderful, incredibly tough plastic becomes brittle in that same area where you need it to be strong to hold your camera in place. So, I'll show you how to make this work best. Let's take a look at the manual. I know you all probably don't like reading manuals, but the stuff I put in here, trust me, is absolutely important. And if we're talking about the fasteners, I want you to look at this brand of thread locker. I don't want you using any other type of thread locker or Loctite material because the chemicals that are used in the thread lockers that you're going to find at your local home improvement stores or hardware stores are not made for plastic. They may not say it on the label, but generally they will cause problems with plastic. Loctite 425 was specifically made for plastic, and you may have to order that from an online source. Otherwise, your mount may come loose. So let's talk about how else you can keep that from happening. I really like this stuff. It's a particular brand, but it doesn't matter. What's important here is 100% silicone. This has no chemicals that are toxic, nor does it have chemicals that will damage the plastic. So the trick is that you can put a bit of this silicone right around the front fastener, okay? So the front being the tall portion of your mount, okay? And what that will do is, much like the Picatinny rail, it will keep the mount from wiggling around. There's not much wiggle room, but it can move a little bit, and we don't want that. So let's just go ahead and do that right now. Okay. I like these tubes because unlike a caulking gun, they're good for small projects. Don't worry if you get any in the hole. It's not a big deal. I know what you're thinking. Why not back here? All right. And the reason is because it may make it more difficult to remove this later. If you only have it on the front, it will resist a lot of the tendency for the mount to come loose, but you will be able to peel it off using leverage from the rear without having to stick a screwdriver or pry bar and possibly put gouges or scratches on your helmet. So now that we've put a little bit of silicone, we can carefully, and I'm going to try to do this so the camera can see, we're going to line up those holes. See that? Okay, so you got the holes lined up, and I know my hand's going to get in the way here, but please bear with me. I'm going to get the first screw started. And it's usually easier to do this by hand. Just get it started, get your wrench in there, and start turning it. You don't need to see me do every turn. Please bear with me while I just get this thing somewhat cinched down. And I'm going to take the other one. And like I said, if you do choose to use a plastic safe thread locker, now would be the time to do it. And you can use it in conjunction with a little bit of silicone. The nice thing is you're not going to lose these screws even if they loosen up. Now you should always check your equipment after each use or before each use. But you see how I'm just holding the wrench with 2 fingers here. And I'm barely torquing down. I mean, I'm just going real gentle. I'm not going to apply a lot of stress in that area with just some finger tight screws. Now let's look up at the top side. Nice, huh? The great thing is the glue is down inside and there's nothing to make a mess squeezing out around the edges. So it's a real clean install. You're going to want to let that silicone cure for, I think, 24 hours, they say. Anyway, that's how to install the mount itself. Now you notice that there's Velcro on the top. And so when you first get the mount, it's not going to have Velcro on top. You're going to need to take, this is how it looks. You're going to need to take one of the patches of Velcro that come included with your MOHOC camera. So I'm assuming you bought a MOHOC camera with this mount, or maybe you had one previously. So all you really need to do is just take a pair of scissors and cut it to the width of the rear of the mount. Just like I did here, and just slap it down. You don't need the Velcro to come all the way out to the edges. It holds the camera fine, and you don't have to do anything fancy. However, I know that some of you are going to want to have the really nice looking setup where the Velcro is completely covering the top of your mount. And the best way to do this is to peel the backing off of your Velcro and just kind of center the mount over it and press it down. Right. Now you have to do this before you install the mount on the helmet like we just did. Right? Otherwise, this would be very hard. So now, even if you're not a crafty person, you just stuck that down and you just take a pair of scissors and just trim it off. And you don't even have to be real neat. Just get right in there. Probably want to clean your scissors off later. But you see, this way you get a real professional looking install, because it's really hard to take a piece and stick it down and get it just right. It's way, way easier to stick it down and trim the edges. Okay, so now we've covered the Velcro. Let's look at cameras. MOHOC sells two cameras. The MOHOC 1, very popular, very rugged, and very easy to use. Everything is self-contained. It uses CR123 batteries. It's got a battery compartment that's watertight, and you just stick it on top. Okay. There's also the MOHOC 2, which is a more expensive customized camera. You have to special order these from MOHOC, configured to whatever platform you're using to transmit the video. You see, because it uses a military grade cable to do the transmission. And whether you're using trellisware radio or something else for the transmission, this is a more complicated setup. So for now, let's just focus on the basic MOHOC. Right now, I've got it in the forwardmost position. You see it's exactly the same shape as the mount. Very clean, very nice. We've got a pretty good upward tilt. And maybe if the camera person comes down and we can kind of look. The advantage to that tilt is no dog ever walks on all fours with its head up and pointed forward. They always are somewhat nose down. And that's even if they're not sniffing at something on the ground, right? So more upward tilt is good. Now, if you want even more tilt, it is absolutely okay. In fact, I prefer it. Stick the camera, ride it back further. You see, because it's a curve, the further back it goes, the more the lens aims up at the sky. Now you look, this is a real natural angle that I'm holding the helmet at. You'll notice when your dog is running around, they're always a little bit nose down. And look at the nice forward view that you're getting out of that camera. However you want to run it, I highly recommend that you use the included top strap. You notice that there are two slots, one in the rear, one in the front. Since we've got the camera in the rear position, let's go ahead and run that strap through. And I'm going to put this over, cinch it up as tight as you can. And that's doing a bit of security work because Velcro wears out, the loops get loose, and the camera will come off. I've even seen a brand new camera on brand new Velcro come flying off at a trade show just because the dog did a full body shake. They can shake at a frequency that will overcome industrial strength Velcro. So unless you want to lose your camera out in the field, please use the overstrap. And if you want maximum security, use a nylon cable tie, because that would probably be even stronger. But you're going to have to cut it off each time you want to access that battery compartment. That's how this works. One last thing to show, which everybody wants to know, is because the camera is wider than the rear of the shell, how does it work with the ear covers? And I'll show you exactly how that works right here. So even with the camera in place, you can get your ear covers on, although it's a little bit easier if the camera is not on the helm. But that's because I was riding that all the way back. You see how far back you can ride this? In fact, the ear covers make the rear of the camera even more stable because it gives it a place to anchor. So all of this stuff was designed together. The tolerances between the ear covers and the camera mount work great. Nothing rubs or chafes. And it is a fantastic setup. If you want to wire your dog for shooting video, this is probably the most effective, reliable, and cost-effective way to do so. That's it for today. Thank you so much.